I'm 102 years old, and the heaviest thing I carry is not my age. It's 3 words I never said to the man I loved most. His name was Daniel, and I ran out of time before I gave them to him. At this age, there's no reason to pretend. My hands tremble when I lift a cup. My steps are slow. Most of the people who knew me as a young woman are gone. The only thing that hasn't faded is the memory of his face the last time I saw him breathing. I am not telling you this to impress you. I am telling you because silence has followed me for decades, and I don't want to leave this world still holding it. When I was 22, I believed life would stretch on forever. I believed love didn't need to be spoken if it was steady. I believed there would always be another tomorrow to say what felt awkward today. I was wrong. Daniel and I met at a church picnic in the summer of 1946. I remember the heat, the lemonade too sweet. He stood near the oak tree with his sleeves rolled up, laughing at something one of the older men had said. His laugh wasn't loud. It was warm. That's what drew me to him. He asked if I wanted to walk down to the river after the picnic. I said yes before thinking too hard about it. We walked slowly, talking about nothing important. His job at the hardware store, my work at the library desk. It felt easy. That's the word I still use, easy. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony. I wore a simple dress my mother helped me sew. Daniel held my hand so tightly during the vows that I had to squeeze back to remind him I was still there. In the beginning, I thought love meant loyalty and hard work. If you stayed faithful, if you kept the house warm, if you paid the bills on time, that was love. Daniel worked long hours. I stayed home after our first child was born. Our life was modest, but it was steady. I packed his lunch every morning. He kissed my forehead before leaving. I watched from the kitchen window as he drove away. There were so many chances to say what I felt. I would stand behind him while he washed dishes on Sundays and think, I don't know who I would be without you. But I didn't say it. It felt too dramatic, too vulnerable. I was raised to be composed. My mother never said I love you to my father in front of us. She showed it through meals and mended shirts. I thought that was enough. Daniel was not a man who demanded praise. He was quiet, steady. Sometimes, late at night, he would turn to me and say, Are you happy, Cora? I would answer, Of course I am. He would nod, but sometimes he would add, I hope I'm enough. I always meant to respond properly to that, to tell him he was more than enough, that he was the safest place in my life. But I would laugh softly instead. Don't be silly, I'd say. I thought he understood. Years passed. 3 children grew up in that house. The wallpaper changed. The furniture aged. Daniel's hair thinned and turned silver at the temples. Mine did too. He would reach for my hand when we walked through town. Sometimes I let him. Sometimes I gently pulled away, embarrassed to look sentimental in public. I see now how that must have felt to him. The damage didn't come from shouting. We rarely shouted. It came from small moments where I chose pride over tenderness. When he forgot our anniversary one year, I didn't tell him I was hurt. I went quiet instead. I washed dishes harder than necessary. He sensed the shift but didn't know why. "I'll make it up to you," he said. I nodded, but I never told him what I really wanted wasn't a gift. It was for him to look at me and say that I still mattered. He tried in his own way. He fixed things around the house without being asked. He brought me fresh peaches when they were in season because he knew I loved them. And I loved him. I did, fiercely. But the words stayed inside me, as if saying them would expose something fragile. In my 40s, I began working part-time at the school office. I liked having something that belonged to me. Daniel supported it, though he never said much about it. He was proud of me. I could see it in his eyes when neighbors mentioned my name. There were evenings when he would sit at the kitchen table, watching me move around the room. "You look tired," he'd say. "So do you," I'd answer. We were both tired. Life does that to you. It wears you down gently. I remember one specific night. The children were already grown. The house was quiet. Daniel sat across from me with a cup of tea. "Cora," he said, "if something happened to me, would you be all right?" I felt a sharp irritation. "Why do you talk like that?" "I just wonder." I looked down at my hands. I should have told him the truth, that the thought of losing him terrified me, that he was the thread that held my world together. Instead, I said, "We're both strong. We'd manage." We, as if there would still be a we without him. When he turned 73, he retired from the hardware store. I thought we would finally have time to travel a little, time to sit on the porch and talk the way we used to by the river. But habits are stubborn. We fell into silence instead of conversation. We shared space comfortably, but rarely our deeper thoughts. Then he began to cough. At first it seemed harmless. Then it lingered. Doctor visits followed. Tests. Words spoken in low tones. Lung disease. Advanced. I remember the smell of the hospital corridor. I remember the sound of his breathing at night, uneven and labored. I remember thinking, this can't be the end. We haven't finished yet. I sat beside his bed and held his hand. His skin felt thinner than it ever had. One afternoon, he looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not fear, not pain, something softer. "Cora," he whispered, "did I make you happy?" The question struck me like a stone. I opened my mouth, and for a moment, nothing came out. How do you condense a lifetime into a sentence? "Yes," I said finally, "of course you did." He studied my face. "I always hoped so." That was my moment, the moment to say everything I had held back for 50 years. I could have said, "You were my home. You were my safety. I loved you more than I knew how to say." But I hesitated. It felt overwhelming. I thought there would be another day. He died 2 mornings later. The hospital room was pale and quiet. I was holding his hand when his breathing slowed and then stopped. There was no grand speech, no final declaration, just silence. After the funeral, the house felt enormous. His chair by the window sat empty. His slippers remained by the bed for months because I couldn't move them. At night, I would replay that question, "Did I make you happy?" And I would answer it differently in my mind each time. Yes, you did. You were everything to me. I was just too afraid to say it out loud. What can't be fixed is not the arguments we had. It's not the forgotten anniversaries. It's that he left this world not fully hearing how deeply he was loved. Maybe he knew. I pray he knew. But knowing and hearing are not the same. I am 102 now. My children visit when they can. They have families of their own. They tell me they love me before leaving. They say it easily. I didn't teach them that. They learned it despite me. When I sit alone in the afternoons, I think about the river where Daniel and I first walked, the oak tree, the way his hand felt around mine. If I could go back, I wouldn't change our house or our jobs. I would change the silence. I would say the simple things. You matter to me. I am proud of the man you are. I don't want to imagine this life without you. I thought love was something you proved by staying. I didn't realize it also needed to be spoken clearly and often. I am not telling you what you must do. I have no authority over anyone's life. I only know what it feels like to sit at 102 years old and wish for one more ordinary evening at the kitchen table. One more chance to answer that question properly. If there is someone in your life who quietly wonders if they are enough, don't leave them guessing, even if it feels awkward, even if you were raised not to say such things. I was raised that way too, and now I live with the echo of words that never left my mouth. The sun is setting outside my window as I speak. It paints the room the same color it did that summer evening by the river. I can almost hear his laugh. I loved him more than I ever allowed myself to say. And that is the regret I will carry, gently but firmly, until my own breathing slows and someone else is holding my hand.